The decider can make a good all or nothing decision if she knows the extra cost incurred and the extra revenue generated if the firm makes the decision. Economists often say incremental instead of extra. That is, the extra cost is the same as the incremental cost, and the extra revenue is the incremental revenue. Now, how do we use this information to make a good decision? The logic is simple. You should undertake an all or nothing activity only when the extra revenue exceeds the extra cost. If the extra revenue is greater than the extra cost, then taking the action makes profit go up. Yay, owners like that. On the other hand, if the extra revenue is less than the extra cost and the firm and the action is undertaken, profit goes down, boo, owners don't like that. So this question now is, the logic is determine extra revenue and extra cost, undertake the action when the extra revenue is greater than the extra cost, and avoid it otherwise. This guide has two important implications. The first important implication is that the decider should avoid the sunk cost fallacy. The other one is to avoid the hidden cost fallacy. Now, the sunk cost fallacy occurs when the decider uses a fixed or sunk cost in the analysis, or it bases its decision, at least at some point, on a cost that's fixed or sunk. Costs that do not vary with the decision are irrelevant to the decision. An example of the sunk cost fallacy is continuing a project because the firm has already spent a large amount of money on the project. The relevant costs are the extra cost the firm would incur if it continues the project, not what it has already paid. Another example of the sunk cost fallacy is considering a fixed charge for depreciation of asset. If depreciation of assets does not change, it is irrelevant. The hidden cost fallacy occurs when the decider fails to consider all the extra cost or revenue that the decision would create. One example of the hidden cost fallacy is in the book is switching to cheaper coal without considering the firm must buy more natural gas to replace the lost BTU. Another example of the book is failure to measure accurately risk. A third example of the hidden cost fallacy is to decide whether to introduce a new product without considering how the introduction will affect profits for other products sold by the firm. A fourth example is failing to consider the implicit cost of capital, time, and assets. Hurdle rates and EVA attempt to make explicit the implicit cost of capital. One reason deciders often fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy is reliance on data supplied by accountants. One reason that reliance on data supplied by accountants may not be an accurate guide for making a good decision is that accountants focus on historic and explicit cost. The relevant costs and revenues are in the future and include both implicit and explicit cost. Another reason that reliance on data supplied by accountants may not be an accurate guide for good decisions is that accountants focus on average cost and revenues. The relevant cost and revenues are incremental. A simple example illustrates that data supplied by the accountants may not be an accurate guide for making a good decision. Suppose that you are choosing between two otherwise similar franchise opportunities. Franchise A, with a net income of at least $60,000 and you work 40 hours per week. Franchise B, where your net income is $61,000 and you work 60 hours a week. The firm would be a proprietorship and you would not pay yourself a salary. Accountants and the IRS agree that profit is higher for franchise B. 61 is greater than 60. You'll pay more taxes with franchise B. However, assuming 50 work weeks per year, The best choice for anyone who values the extra $1,000 hours more at $1 per hour prefers franchise A. That is, if you think the value of time is $1 an hour or less, you would choose franchise B. Anyone who values the time at more than $1 an hour would prefer franchise A, even though the accountant and the IRS says profit is higher in B.